I had a rack that was very close to the quarterdeck. I heard everything. She came running out of the head. Ah! And the other fire watch tries to calm her down. Oh, Recruit Morris saw a ghost, ma'am. The next morning, our senior was there and we weren't expecting. She tells us about, hey, we know that Morris saw something last night, but that's because the squad base haunted.
In the dark forest lies a secret, told in broken stories by those who have bore witness. A monster, a murder, a long-forgotten ghost town. We're here to walk the haunted paths, to seek out the restless spirits who linger in these forsaken places, and we want you to come along. Welcome to Tales, Trails, and Taverns. We're here to take an active approach to finding places that people might warn you not to go to. Haunted trails, abandoned towns, old taverns where you might catch a glimpse of a long-deceased patron. So lace up your boots, grab a working flashlight, and join us as we tell the tales, hike the trails, and grab a cold pint at the local tavern. Alright, welcome back to another episode of Tales, Trails, and Taverns. Tonight, I've got a guest, Christa Davis. So, Christa saw that we had done an episode on Parris Island a while back. This is going back a year and a half now, about the hauntings and the ghost stuff and the different spirits that hang out with the Marines on the island down in South Carolina. And it turns out that some of the stuff that Rob quoted actually was stuff that you wrote and you got back on Reddit. So, Christa, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's good to
Thanks
be
so much
here.
for coming on.
I'm flattered. I appreciate you having me on here. Just to, it's hard to find people to listen to some of the stuff that pertains to this. So
yeah,
I have new set of ears to tell it to. So I appreciate
That's good.
it.
Absolutely. And fellow Marine. So I'm super glad to have you on the show. I there's been a bunch of stuff where I've been on shows with Marines. I've had other Marines on the show. I just had the Arcana District Guy Quinteri. He was a recon Marine. I had him on. I was on the Cult and Conspiracy podcast. They were both the hosts were Marines, were former Marines, and I feel like, and now I got you on the show, Chris. I wanted to ask before we get started. It seems like I'm just coming across Marine after Marine, and of course, me and Rob both served. Do you feel like maybe Marines don't really care if people think they're crazy because everybody already thinks we're kind of wild, so we can kind of be in the paranormal realm and spectrum and not care what people say?
Yes. It's almost like, well, they're going to think I'm crazy anyway. I might as well just abandon all hope trying to convince them otherwise. But, I mean, we're crazy for joining in the first place, right?
Exactly. So yeah, back when we did that episode, we were doing different military bases, establishments. We did some stories from Iraq. We did Area 51, the whole Roswell incident, one of those episodes, and we did Parris Island because obviously, if you're a Marine, it's either Parris Island or San Diego. So every Marine has been to either one. Most of them, I think most of them. I don't know. Is there more that's from one than the other, from Parris Island or San Diego?
Not for women. All women go through PI.
Parris Island, yeah.
As far as I know, it's been 25 years. Holy crap, right? But it was all women at PI, and
I think it still is.
Yeah, I don't know like the ratios or anything, but I do know it's like anyone east of the Mississippi is at Parris Island and otherwise.
I know Parris Island is older than MCRD San Diego, so maybe there's probably a lot. I'm sure there's a lot more history in Parris Island than other places, but I digress.
Yeah.
So yeah, you did a lot of research, and you had a personal experience that got you into wanting to do that research. So let's take it back to that. How did you get into it? How did this all start for you?
Sure. Well, really, it started at boot camp. I was in from January of 2001 to January of 2006, 5 years. When I was at recruit training, it was, I guess, February. We were at the range, and one of the girls in my platoon, she was real hardcore. She was real tough. She was one of those like 2 squad leader type of girls and stuff. So one night she was on fire watch and she just saw some guy in the head and started running out, and it was nuts. I wasn't on fire watch, but I had a rack that was very close to the quarterdeck, and I heard everything. I was I wasn't a light sleeper, but I didn't fall asleep quickly. So I was just hanging out. I saw, everybody was on fire watch. Then I heard her name was Morris. She came running out of the head, and the other fire watch tried to calm her down. So they actually knocked on the hatch of our drill instructor, and it was our heavy. So she was like, what the fuck do you want? And they're all like, oh, Recruit Morris saw a ghost, ma'am. So, of course, we think she's going to come out and, Mortal Kombat all of us. But she
Yeah.
didn't. She came out. She had her little moonbeam. She went to the back of the squad bay. She checked everything. She looked under the racks. She was spooked big time. After that, we had to go into the head with a buddy. We were not allowed to, we weren't allowed to do anything in the squad bay alone. And it was just because
Shit.
the next morning, our senior was there and we weren't expecting her. So she gets us all in little school circle, whatever they called it. She tells us about, hey, we know that Morris saw something last night, but that's because the squad bay's haunted, y'all. So she tells us a couple things. The first thing she said was, she said there was this incident, Ribbon Creek, and she told us that the drill instructor was slam bam drunk, that he woke them up at balls and marched them around. So, and then she said a couple things that have happened that she experienced. A couple things was men in the head. She talked about these, they came home from chow, or they came back from chow once, and there were boot prints all over the deck, and they were white, powdery, like baby powder, cornstarch kind of thing. She talked about puddles on the deck. So it's funny because I hadn't mentioned it earlier before we went live, but I wrote to my mom about it when we were at the range, and I didn't know. But, my mom saved all my letters. So when I was going through them a few years ago, I was like, well, look at this. So I'm happy to read that if you want. It was just kind of, hey, guess what? It's haunted, and kind of the same thing I just told you. Yeah. And then I kind of said, I don't know if I should believe her, because I grew up in a religious household and I believe in God, and I didn't know how that was going to play out. I believed her, but I felt kind of weird believing her. Since then, I have grown to actually say, if I don't believe in ghosts, then I'm blind as a bat. I have, I'm denying myself stuff. So I just kind of grew up a little bit. But yeah, so that happened. And years later, I'm in grad school. So I decided to do a project on Ribbon Creek. And as I noticed, the things that I was researching, it came out a little more that people had been reporting hauntings and sightings and things like that on social media, like Reddit. And there's a whole bunch of other websites too that kind of talk about Ribbon Creek, but not so much the paranormal side of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a big issue on Parris Island, but when I was there, I was in I went to boot camp in 2003, and I remember the story. I remember the Ribbon Creek story about him being drunk and getting up in the middle of the night and marching his recruits into the swamp, and a number of them dying, drowning, and stuff like that. I don't remember anything about. There may have been talk about it being haunted, but I don't remember even thinking about that shit back then. I think it was too campus
Right.
So balls to the wall when you just I didn't even remember. God, I can barely remember.
You have so much
the whole
going
thing
on at that time. Like the range, you're not being hazed to death at the range, but you have a whole different set of stressors.
Yeah, no, the our kill hat made me stand in a sink at the range at one point. He's he dragged me to the bathroom. He's like, "Get in my sink." I was like, "Sir," he's like, "Did I fucking stutter? Get in the sink." I was like, "Holy shit!" Standing in the sink at attention.
Yeah,
getting drilled.
they're totally, I have a story like that too, where I guess they're like, well, we can't send them to the pit every day, but let's just mess with them. I had a male drill instructor. We were pulling pits, and he came. I'm only 4'11", so I'm very short. And he said, "Oh, you come here." So he had me come over there. "You look like a little teapot. You're very short and stout." So I had to actually sing "I'm a Little Teapot" to pretty much everybody down there in the pits, and I had to do the handle and the spout. Yeah, it was something. So they just, they always had something for you to do at the range, even if you weren't, getting quarter decked or something. But yeah, and I figured like that could have been something to consider, like maybe the stress level of people and why they saw something, but it's consistent and it's not just I saw this and it's different from what these other 42 people saw. It's not like that. It's like I've got right in front of me, I've got 42 accounts of people
Yeah.
sharing what they experienced at the rifle range barracks. So they used to call them the white elephants just because it was like World War II barracks and rickety.
Yeah.
In '01, they had replaced them. But we know that residual energy doesn't stick to an object always. I
Yeah.
think in this case, it sticks to the rifle range, like the whole rifle range. But out of 42, so let's see, like 14 of them saw apparitions, heard voices, heard sounds. The boot, like the powdery boot prints that I talked about, I have 3 or 4 of those. A whole bunch of marching, a whole bunch of running. It's crazy. And the biggest thing is the men in the head. And, they're always the same. And I'm going to connect this to Ribbon Creek, although I think on a larger scale, the Marine Corps with recruit training, they don't always publicize things that happen at recruit training. So we don't really know after Ribbon Creek happened. We don't really know what the death is about, right? We know that guy
Yeah.
got struck by lightning. There's always rumors about suicides and stuff, but there's really no proof, like unless you work there now
Yeah.
and you can dig in there. There were 6 people who died in Ribbon Creek, and they were all kids. I think the oldest was like 21. And it's the stuff about them are very kind of connected to the circumstances behind the sightings that people see and other things. And there's also a lot of sightings of, it's more like disembodied sounds and voices and things over by the creek, where they're over there at night, PMO. They're over
Yeah.
there like doing their watch, and then they hear stuff, screaming. They hear just commotion, panic, stuff like that. I mean, what else could that be to happen right there? And you realize after an amount of time that all the stuff that you hear about Ribbon Creek is kind of false. And a lot of the information does kind of point to the very high likelihood, I guess, that there is a big residual energy stuck at Parris Island. And I think that the real focus for me was always like, why are these so consistent? Why do these people have the same tale? This guy went to boot camp in '98. This girl went in 2010. This person went in the '80s. They don't know each other, but they all saw the same thing. It's wild to think about, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got a constant rotation of new people in and out of there. Not every one of them is going to hear the same. They're not going to hear the same stories over and over. But if they're seeing the same thing decades apart too, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's compelling. And another thing that I noticed is most people say, I didn't know what I was seeing. I thought it was maybe just the stress of boot camp. I thought that I was going nuts because I didn't sleep that night. When in reality, it's very likely that what they're seeing is what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So, of course, nothing would ever, I can't go to Parris Island and say, hey, I'm investigating ghost stories on.
Yeah, nobody's going to let you. They're not going to let you do that.
Yeah. They'll be like, and go away, So it stopped at the end of my research. When I graduated, there was really no further ado. I couldn't pursue anything else except write. I'm a writer by trade, and that's what my degree is in. And I have written stories about Ribbon Creek. They're my stories. They're not published. So,
yeah,
I'm not really interested in sharing them. So as far as I was concerned, that was just kind of the end of my research. It was fun. It was creepy. I learned a lot. I really learned a lot about Ribbon Creek. he wasn't drunk. He had been
No?
drinking that day. But let's be Marines for a sec. I'm drinking. It's 12:30 p.m. I have 4 shots of vodka, and then an hour later I go get a beer. Then at about 3 I take a nap. I wake up, I go get my platoon, they piss me off. 8 o'clock, I form them up to go march them. I would say he's past that drunk phase by then. I'm just,
Right.
not that I knew the guy, but I'm pretty sure that, yes, he shouldn't have drank that day, but I think that they made the focus so much on his alcohol, use that day, despite, somebody did a toxicology exam and did blood work and stuff. He wasn't intoxicated,
Right.
but they just kind of made it that way to seem like that. His recruits really thought highly of him. They did a lot of witness statements during the trial for McEwen, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he's a great guy." I'm thinking here though, at this point, just in my head, should I kind of give a background on Ribbon Creek? Because I'm wondering if someone listening is like, I don't want to have to Google this myself.
Yeah. Let's do like the outline of hit Ribbon Creek and what happened, so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Got it. Okay. Ribbon Creek is a creek behind Parris Island. It is located right behind the rifle range. It's located between, they used to call them Bravo, Charlie, and Delta range, I think it was, but I think it's like Starlight and Chosen ranges right now. So this man, Staff Sergeant McEwen, this was his first platoon, and he was on duty that day. He had another drill instructor with him. So as I said, he was kind of irritated with his guys because they were being sort of undisciplined. They were goofing off. They weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So he had them cleaning like all day. He was having them field day the barracks like nonstop. So they knew he was mad. He left them with another drill instructor. He went and drank a little, took a nap, came back. Later on, they went to chow. And we all know that the rifle range chow hall is a little better than the others. So I'm thinking that that's why they were excited. But they went there, they were goofing off and went back for like seconds. And McEwen was like, oh, hell no.
Right.
So I think I read I read through the court martial stuff, and I think somebody testified that they knew what they were about to do. They knew that they were about to go, they called it into the boondocks. So at about 8 p.m., he formed them up down at the bottom of the barracks and marched them out there. He started like snaking them, and eventually they went through this like pluff mud and reached the edge of the creek, and then there was like a drop off, and a lot of the little end, they started losing their footing because they were on the little end. They were smaller. So long story short, a whole like panic ensued because people were drowning, and 6 of them died. And then, it was this big, really big thing. I mean, even Chesty, I don't know if you knew this, Chesty Puller testified on behalf of Staff Sergeant McKeon yeah, but I don't really know what good it did, if that makes sense.
What
But yeah, that's the story.
What year was this?
56.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the time they were in like peacetime. So there wasn't a lot of heavy stress going on there if you think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would even say the differences in when you went in and when I went in would be different because I went in before 9/11. You went in after. So it's a different vibe.
I went in right after the Iraq war started.
Yeah.
It was like a few weeks. I joined because the war started. So it was like a few weeks after the war started. It was probably really different.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm sure that their attitude towards things may have been just a result of no real purpose once you're graduated. Like we're shipping you off somewhere. And Korea was over and Vietnam wasn't there yet. And so anyway, I think that it was just a bunch of little goofballs, just like we all were. trying to goof off and get away with it, and they got away with it to an extent, and then he went to go punish them. He said that he went on mud marches when he was a recruit and didn't
Right.
see anything wrong with it. And I think it's a terrible tragedy, and I think it's a terrible mistake. I don't think that he's like, I'm going to go kill these fools tonight. I'm
Yeah.
going to line them up and drown them. An impulsive, maybe bad decision on his part. But he was convicted of like drinking in the barracks and I think a couple other things. And he was sentenced to like a dishonorable discharge and break time. But instead, they later let him stay in. They busted him down to private. And
Yeah.
I think he got out as like a corporal or something later on. So that's Ribbon Creek. There's a whole
Yeah.
lot more to it, of course, but so there's the context behind it. And the story itself is nuts because, you know, McKeon was, I know I keep saying McEwen and McKeon. It's my mouth. He went in and saved a bunch of them. So it's not like he
Yeah.
was like, quit farting around, quit screwing around. He was like, oh crap, I got to get in there and save these guys. So he did what he could.
Yeah.
So
Ribbon Creek is a tidal creek too, right? I know Parris Island is all a low-lying, salt, marshy area, so Ribbon Creek does have the tides coming in and out too.
yeah, and that was the
So
problem.
It's not always predictable as to how deep the water's going to be or how fast it's moving or
Exactly. And I think, you know, what really happened, I guess, was that everybody was cool for a sec and then the tide started changing and some swell or wash, tide was going back out to Broad River and these smaller guys just couldn't keep their footing. And then there were some non-swimmers and the non-swimmers couldn't stay afloat either. And yeah, it just took them out, you know. But yeah, I do think that a couple of those guys are still kind of doing their thing in the barracks. It's like on a big rotation, I can't think of the word, like a cycle, you know?
yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it's
think
really
one
something.
of the last guests I had on was talking about how the land being haunted instead of just buildings. When people talk about things are haunted, it's like, yes, the ground can be haunted. The ground and the area is definitely just as susceptible, if not more susceptible to hauntings, especially residual ones or stuff like this where, you know, something tragic happened and a lot of energy is expelled when you have
Yeah.
a death like that or deaths like, especially a lot of them, especially, you know, 6 people at the same time under that type of stuff. Plus, there's a lot of energy. I mean, in boot camp, the type of stuff that you're doing, there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, sleep deprivation and stuff. Yeah.
I imagine that somehow even the imprint of people who were alive are still doing that. And I wonder if some of those people are the crying. You know, people talk about hearing crying in the head,
Yeah.
seeing recruits crying. Like, who was that? And then the puddles of water. Was that after? Like, was that?
Right.
And
Trying to come back. Yeah.
yeah.
Or,
I mean, I went to, like, I was stationed in Beaufort after I went to school in Pensacola. That was cool. And
yeah.
then I ended up getting stationed in Beaufort. So I was at the air station, but we did the rifle range at PI when we qualified. So I never saw anything, but I do remember at 4:30 a.m. you're laying there, everybody around me sleeping because you hurry up and you wait. And I'm looking around like, well, I can't sleep. It's creepy out here. So I don't know.
Yeah. I do remember
Yeah.
being on fire watch and walking around the barracks and being like, well, anything. These buildings are not new. They're older buildings. Anything could happen at this point. You know, add that to like, you got, man, there was one time I woke up and I was standing at attention next to my rack and I was sleepwalking, standing there. Like, and I woke up and I was standing up. I was like, the fuck am I doing? And there's, you know, always people moving around and shuffling around. Like, in the middle of the night, you're on fire watch and people just doing weird shit. Just, like, not in their rack.
It was a weird time. I loved boot camp, though. I had a great time. Yes, they really fucked with me sometimes, but it was because I was little. But I had the best time. My recruiter told me, he said, look, don't listen to them. They're acting. They're just doing their job. They, you know, go home and they kiss their wife or kiss their husband and then They take their pants off and they do the same stuff you do. So don't worry about them.
Yeah.
And that was what I needed. Because anytime they yelled at me, I was just like, okay. And I got, it was fun. I loved it. But still, I know it wasn't for everybody. It wasn't fun for everybody. Like, I don't know if you had anyone try to, like, I don't know, Section 8 out, where they're like, I'm crazy, just so they could get kicked out of boot camp. I mean, we had a couple of
Yeah.
those.
There was a couple people who tried to get out. It was one person who tried to get out who didn't. And there was other people who just kind of disappeared while we're, just kind of quietly go away.
I remember one time we were doing drill, and this girl, her name was Melendez, and she just stopped, and she was like, fuck this, right out loud, and started walking with her rifle towards the road, and our drill instructor she didn't tackle her, but she almost did, So I just remember some of those funny things. But yeah, I do, with the barracks, when I was at boot camp and I was in the range barracks, the only other thing that was weird that happened, we were, oh gosh, who knows what we were doing, but the platoon was there. Maybe we were doing field day or something, but we heard, pat, 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 pat on the back hatch. And our drill instructor was like, she went and got it. So then, of course, nobody asked who it was, but she was like, oh, no problem. It was just, drill instructor Sergeant so-and-so forgot their keys or something. But I don't know if that was true or not. Maybe they were like freaked out and didn't want to tell us. So, because doing my research, that's one of the things that people say, that people knock on the back hatch and they hear it all the time.
That's interesting. Did you read the letter that you sent to your mom?
No, but I can.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Okay, so I'm just going to read, of course, the passage that applies. Yeah. The rest of it's like about food. And all right.
You're always hungry on Parris Island.
Oh, God. And I was a fat body the first half of boot camp. I was chubby when I went in. That's because I knew they didn't have pizza. So I ate a lot of it before boot camp. But anyway, all right. So this is from 1, and the date is March 11th. So I was wrong about February. All right. So I said, did I tell you that the squad bay we're staying in is supposedly haunted? A girl in my platoon, Morris, saw a guy in camis walking around in the head at around 0100 hours. And the DI Sergeant Ponce, whenever she has duty, she constantly checks the hatches and makes us go to the head with a buddy at night. And when we told Senior about what Morris saw, she said, oh yeah, this squad bay has ghosts, and told us this big story, and it's a true story. Back in the day, a DI got drunk and woke up his platoon at 2 a.m. and made them march around in the marsh during low tide. Little did he know the tide came in, and 4 or 5 of them got stuck in the mud and couldn't get out in time. They were staying in the same squad bay that we are. Today, Senior's taking us to the marshes where it happened. It's freaky to think that a DI would be so irresponsible. Like, who the hell am I? But yeah, so none of that was true. And I also don't think she took us there. I don't think she took us. I would have remembered that. But, when you're in the pits, you see it. So, yeah, it was just kind of cool that I documented that. Like, when it happened, it was a big deal. Because I don't think the girl, Morris, I don't think she was the same after that at all. Like, I think that she was like, what? It had to be scary. So.
Yeah, seriously. Going to the head and some guys in there crying. Or something they just never went on.
Yes. The crying is big. And I'm, like I said, it really makes you wonder, is that the platoon? They were platoon 71. It makes you wonder. There were 75 recruits in that platoon, but 74 of them went on that march. One of them was at sick call, and 6 of them didn't come back. I've got like a bunch of pictures. I'm going to send all this to you. I've got some articles and pictures of like the whole platoon right after it happened. And you should see the looks on their faces, like stoic. Just they don't like, it's almost like get that camera out of my face kind of thing. Then I have a picture of them at the church during one of the recruit services. And I think it was I don't remember which recruit, of course, I didn't look, but they were like the only one who had a service on Parris Island. The parents were pissed. So they were like, we don't want you to have a service for our kid. You can bring them home. I don't blame them.
Yeah, right.
But it's weird to go back that far and feel kind of the same stuff. Like, why do people get emotionally connected to one thing and not another thing? My parents weren't even alive in 1956. What the hell am I doing trying to, get answers to all this stuff? It's a dead end. These guys didn't have kids. They were 17, 18, 19 years old. So, everybody else is dead. It's crazy to think about. I think for me, it's just wanting to get as much of these accounts as possible and maybe make one of those haunted Parris Island books and then go down to Port Royal or something and sell it like at a gift shop. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really what I'm looking at. And like I said, I kind of went through and organized the stuff that I found over time. And just after I started collecting it, I was like, shit, why is this all so similar? And, I found this one on Reddit and I did this on Facebook. So what's, I feel like it needs more exposure. I know that there's more out there. How could there not be?
Yeah, more experiences.
Yeah.
Did you see anything else besides like experience that may have something to do with something other than Ribbon Creek, or is all your research focused on Ribbon Creek?
I mean, I think that the research that I've done with Ribbon Creek and the accounts that I've collected over time, a lot of those I can connect to Ribbon Creek, but not all of them.
Yeah.
There's a woman's scream, and a little girl that people have reported. One girl said that her platoon was staying at those barracks the whole time through boot camp because their barracks at 4th Battalion were getting I don't know, redone or something. And they called her Recruit Emily because she was like messing with them all the time, like little pranks. And some people said that they even heard her and they put her in the logbook, like the Firewatch logbook. Which I thought was funny. I do think that there are some of these that don't connect to Ribbon Creek. And that's why I wonder, like, all right, we know that guy got struck by lightning, so that could be something.
What was that one? Because that's not one that I've heard.
So this,
I never heard the lightning strike one.
1995, he was killed, and 5 others were injured. It was someone from 1st Battalion. Wild.
Wow.
I know. And then, they said that there were suicides at the range, but that's always kind of like folklore almost, where it's like...
Yeah. Is that, did it actually happen, or are you just watching Full Metal Jacket and just remembering movies and shit, Exactly.
But also, we are fully aware that things get swept under the rug often.
That's true.
And I think that Ribbon Creek was so massive during that time that there was no sweeping it under the rug. Like by the time it was said and done, they were all like, crap, we have to notify the commandant about this, you know.
Well, it seems like that's why they use the drinking as like sort of a scapegoat for it. Like, oh, that's what happened. It's not, lack of leadership. He was drunk. That's easy. Yeah. It's an easy way to just throw somebody under the bus.
They really use that as like the main argument.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember drinking in the Corps. I'm little. I drank a lot. So I think that I could have sobered up in that amount of time. Maybe not today, but they'd be like, Krista, she drank yesterday and she's drunk today.
She's still feeling it.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see what else. Another one was, so there's this big one with the powdery footprints. I can't pinpoint that to anything.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting. We've got the library in my town in Westerly the hurricane of 1948 happened in Rhode Island. It was a big hurricane that hit. Nobody knew it was coming. Bunch of stuff in this whole town is like really close to the water, so there was a lot of people who ended up getting killed and injured, and they stacked bodies and they stacked injured people in the library and the old high school that used to be there. And now one of the hauntings is wet footprints, right? So that just keeps reminding me of that when you're talking about the wet footprints. The white powdery footprints unless you're powdering your feet walking around the barracks, which I'm sure some people do sometimes, the blisters and bunions that you get hiking and humping and
foot powder. That's what I used when I wrote that story. I wrote like a fictional account of the incident, and that's what I did. I had one of the victims was trying to put powder in his, but he spilled it and trekked. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it doesn't seem to really jive with drowning in a creek, running around in a creek. So it's highly possible that it could be something like that, like just another person. And we don't even know what happened before all of this stuff. God, I mean, it could be, I don't remember if it was a prison or not. I think I made that up just now, but it could have been something like that. I know that at Port Royal there was a prison, and that's right across the river. And, I just think that whole island is charged up. You can pretty much find a ghost story at every battalion. Every battalion. I left these out because they had nothing to do with Ribbon Creek. I still have them, of course, but So I think another thing to point out, though, about the Ribbon Creek stuff is I started piecing this stuff together when I was reading newspaper articles from back in the days of yore about the incident. And one of the victims was writing, well, two of them, but one of them was writing letters to his sister and saying, I don't like this, I want to go home. And they interviewed the sister in the paper, and she said that. She said he was writing me letters and said that he wanted to come home. He didn't like it. So a Reddit user had said that he had a sighting of someone who was crying in the head, and he actually had an encounter with an apparition. He went into the head and came eye to eye with him, and he was crying, and he had a letter in his hand. So that's when the whole thing kind of kicked off for me, and I was like, oh shit, well, a letter, okay, that's kind of a far out connection. But what I did was I messaged the guy and I said, hey, if you don't mind, maybe we could talk about what you saw in the head. And he said, sure, dude, because the USMC Reddit, they think I'm a guy. I'm not going to correct them.
Right.
They don't need to know. But anyway, so he said, yes. I was talking to him, and I said, do you remember what he looked like? Because I know if I saw a ghost like that, if I saw an apparition, I would remember how many freckles were on his face. I think that I would remember it big time. He was like, yeah, I remember, of course he was bald and had big ears and blah, blah, blah. So I said, I'm going to show you two pictures of some recruits. Then two of them are victims. I want to show you these. I said, do either of them look familiar to you? And he was like, yes, the one on the left. And when he said that, I about diarrheaed because I wanted him to say that. That was the kid who was writing letters to his sister. So it's such a weird connection, and it's kind of like, that's kind of far-fetched, but it's also not. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, it's not. And it's all, that's what I'm like. Of course, I'm never going to know everything about these guys, but I do believe that it's just that's what they're doing. They're going through their day there in the barracks. They're not bugging anybody. They're not going to hurt anybody. Right. They're just doing their day. They're getting ready for chow. They're going to the head. I also think that they're coming back from Ribbon Creek, and they're letting all of this sink in. And they're feeling all of that pain and all of that emotion from what happened. And they're dealing with the shock of not just having that happen and the panic, but also realizing that 6 of your buddies are dead. And there's not a lot that can be said about that. Like at that point, did to them, like, I'm sure that they gave them a couple days of recuperation, or at least I hope. But, they might have been like, well, you better go to bed. You got qual day in 2 days or something. Who knows? So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be some serious energy.
I agree. A lot of people have seen like marching platoons or heard marching and stuff.
Yeah.
That could be anybody. It could be literally anybody, but not at 3 a.m. So.
Right. It's interesting too that he pointed out the kid that had been writing letters to his sister saying he wasn't going to be there or didn't want to be there, and then poor guy ends up never leaving, essentially.
Yeah.
God,
and that's
trying to wrap your mind around that one.
It's terrible to think about. I know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I came across during my research was McEwen was 30 years later, 30 years after it happened. So what? I'm bad at math. 86. Yeah, math for Marine. And, 86, so they did an interview with him, and he was talking about these guys, and he just had so many endearments about them. He knew everything about them and was talking about what kind of qualities they had, He said that Riley was the kid in the head with the letter, that I think it was him, that he was a goofball, and that, he was like ornery. He remembered that after 33 years. It wasn't just some face in the platoon for him. It was a person. And that's why I always hate when I see somebody, talk about Ribbon Creek and it's like, well, drinking. He fucked up. But he wasn't trying to, he wasn't trying to cause devastation. And I think it's just kind of a lesson. Like, maybe go to the bathroom, come back, think about it, and then decide if you really want to do that. But he didn't. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that like so much stuff that happens, that the tragic stuff that happens is what changes the way things are run, essentially. I mean, like you were saying, the lightning strike one, when I was there, if there was, you'd get the alarms, you'd get the sirens going off every time there was lightning within 5 miles. It was like, as soon as that happened, everybody had to be under a shelter and couldn't leave, no matter where you were, no matter what was going on. Didn't matter if you were in the middle of something, like you said, on the range, out in the woods, like, and they built these shelters up all over Parris Island, where no matter where you were, you could be under a shelter in a very short amount of time. And then the Ribbon Creek, I'm sure that changed. I'm sure a lot of stuff changed at Parris Island after.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to kick anybody's ass anymore.
Yeah, right.
They found out during the whole thing that, like, at the time the incident happened, there were 10 recruits just in general from other platoons and stuff. There were 10 recruits at Sick Hall.
Shit.
Hazing was kind of heavy back then. I get it. And I think that really it was just a matter of like appealing to all of the crazy civilians who wanted nothing to do with the Marine Corps anymore. And I don't know if you knew this, but during that decade, they were trying to like completely do away with the Marine Corps. They were like, you're just a bunch of turds. Like, we don't need y'all. You keep causing trouble. And us?
Sounds accurate.
Nah. Yeah, exactly. So, and everybody was really worried that because that happened, that they were going to be like, Congress would be like, get rid of them. But it didn't. Yeah. But, it did change a lot. It made things, I guess, better. They made things more structured.
Yeah.
But at what cost, I guess? Like, look what happened.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's like, before that, like the drill instructor, he was, McEwen or McQueen, saying that he got walked out into the swamp and, when he was a recruit, and it wasn't a big deal. It was just normal. it probably would have kept happening. It probably would have kept happening
Hmm.
a lot more until something finally did.
Yeah.
Tragedy does strike.
Yeah, it's not gone. It's still around. I got smacked in the head.
Oh yeah.
I mean, did I deserve it? I don't remember. Maybe they. I did get knocked unconscious at boot camp. They had to salt me,
No, no kidding.
pugil sticks. I got there late because they made me like clean up one of the stations at the Crucible. And when I got there, they were like, hurry up. And they gave me all this stuff. The helmet was like humongous. And then they put me with this girl who's, I'm not exaggerating, 6'2". And she hits me, and it was like a light. And then they made fun of me the rest of boot camp for it, all the drill instructors. Yeah,
That's funny.
they knew something was up. They were like, Ogle, that was my last name back then. Ogle. And I was like, what? And they were like, something's wrong with her. So, yeah.
That's
Look at
funny.
me now, talking about ghosts.
Yeah, fine. That's nothing. Nothing happened. The pugil sticks. I remember. They put me up against this kid that they said we were the same weight class or whatever. But he was probably 4 or 5 inches shorter than me, so he was just jacked. Like the dude was huge.
Yeah.
He was like a little brick wall.
They called
I
me
think he just
Battletoad in the fleet, and that was for the same reason, because I've always been kind of muscular, I guess, stocky, a little teapot of sorts. Yeah, it's on like when when you get out, they give you a little plaque. I'm not hanging that shit on my wall. It says Battletoad on it. It really annoys me. I'm like, thanks guys, thanks for this great plaque. I appreciate this great plaque. It was fine. I liked it. Do you have
boot camp
tinnitus? Because I do.
yeah. It's bad. I
Totally.
don't notice it. I don't notice it that often until it's quiet. I think every time I go camping, it's like I lay down to go to sleep, and it's deafening at that point. Like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
You could treat it like white noise.
Yeah.
It tends to seem a little bit better, but
Right. That's all. Thanks to those 3M earplugs they gave us in Iraq. That's what that was from.
yeah. Yeah, those earplugs. Well, we had like good hearing protection. I worked on jets and we didn't wear them. It was like my dumbass. But, I mean, I would never make a claim because I'm a bad liar. And if they would be like, did you wear hearing protection? I would be like, no. And then they would deny me.
Oh man, they gave me they did the 10% for my VA, and they took 10% off of my PTSD to give me the 10% for tinnitus. I was like, yo, what the fuck?
I know, you can't borrow. You can't borrow percentages.
What is it? What is
So
that? You're supposed to go
stupid.
up. It's not supposed to take it away from me to give me the same thing.
I know. That is
Crazy.
kind of dumb. Make a change for a 5 to give you $5.
Yeah, right. What? All right, well, Krista, it's been fantastic talking to you.
Thanks.
Learning all kinds of stuff about Ribbon Creek, especially the haunting. That's fascinating. So yeah, I look forward to seeing all the stuff, you put together, compiled. And are you gonna write a book about it? Do you feel like that's in your future?
Well, that's on my bucket list. So I feel like fiction is being so oversaturated by AI right now that even if I did want to write a fiction book, that it would compete with people who don't use their own words and their own voice. It would just be AI crap.
Yeah.
So if it were something, it would probably be something like this. Nonfiction, Krista ignored her family and stared into the computer doing research for 6 weeks kind of thing. So yeah, I think so. I guess for me, it just is a matter of someone continuing to like egg me on about it, and knowing that whatever I have is not just a bunch of like gobbledygook where it can be disproven really quickly, but I don't think it can.
Seems like there's a lot to it. Seems like, as Rob would say, there's a lot of meat to that bone. So I think you got something good. So I'll poke the bear a little bit, try to get you to write that book, 'cause I want to see it too. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. It's been great.
Well, thank you. I'll be in touch with all this stuff. It's just on a big spreadsheet. Whenever you're ready for your head to explode, I'll send it on over. And I'm happy to come back and answer questions when, when you have thousands of them. I'm sure you will.
Awesome. Sounds.
All right. Well, it was nice. It was really nice being here, Joe. I'm happy to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. All right.
All right. Take care.
She used to get visited by people at night that died in the mills.
There is a shadow figure standing right next to where the pictures are on the wall that we had just been at.
About 10 minutes ago, right when we crossed the bridge, I saw something.
And as I walk into the hallway, I feel like I see a little girl out of the right corner of my eye.
Dude, I see this fucking man, quick 1-2, like blink my eyes for 3 seconds, and he's fucking gone, dude.
The inn is haunted by 3 ghosts. He says there's the general, there's a little girl.
All of a sudden, I just get this weirdest feeling. Did it just get really cold all of a sudden? It's like, kinda. Within a minute of saying that, we see 2 blonde-haired, blue-eyed children.
I hear him come up the stairs, but I don't see the light. I didn't hear anything. Figured he went back down to get it. And about 5 minutes later, he comes up the stairs and he's got the light in hand. And I'm like, what'd you do? You forget the light downstairs the first time? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I heard you come up the stairs. I didn't see a light. Pierre's like, dude, that wasn't me.
There's a weird feeling about it. We turn, we look. These kids are fucking gone, dude.